Hello, everybody. Hello. Can everybody hear me? Let me know in the chat and we can go ahead and get started. I hope everyone's having a wonderful Monday so far. You can. Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. Okay. So, like I said, hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to our week 1 ICD-10-CM Guideline Mastery session by AMCI. My name is Miss Haley. I'm going to be your lead instructor for this class. Before I get too ahead of myself, I would also like to introduce my wonderful team. We have Miss Olga and Miss Vina. They are going to be in the chat, interacting, encouraging, and answering any questions you guys may have. I'm so excited to be a part of this class. I believe that mastering the guidelines in the ICD-10-CM book is a great way to set a solid foundation for your coding certification exam, as well as real-life coding scenarios. So speaking of ICD-10-CM, I'm going to be using our ICD-10-CM coding book, coding manual. I'm also going to be using our MCG manual. So make sure to keep those both handy during class. Those are the only two books that I'm going to be referencing this whole 8-week session. So definitely make sure to have those. And also please keep in mind that we are doing 2026 guidelines. So that's what we're going to be using. So if you're using a 2025 book or an older, they may be organized a little bit differently, but you'll still be able to follow along just fine. So no worries there. And we are in week 1. This is our first week of the session. So you guys are in a good place. And we are going to start with the guideline basics and go over some general coding guidelines. So as always, if you have a question at any point in the lecture and you want more explanation, or if you have to leave early, please don't forget to fill out our survey, which we will be posting in the chat periodically. So this helps us know how we're doing in the class so we can deliver coding material in the best possible way for you. Thank you so much. Ms. Olga has already posted in the chat, so definitely give that a click before you leave. And if you guys are new here, which a lot of you are because this is our week 1, we are going to start with a true or false Jeopardy game to go over the guidelines, and then we are going to move into some more in-depth scenarios. So we're going to be picking out specific codes a little bit after we do our warm-up. So without further ado, I'm going to quickly go over our copyright. So I'm going to read this real quick. So ICD-10-CM Copyright 2026, American Medical Association, all rights reserved. Fee schedules, relative value units, conversion factors, and/or related components are not assigned by the AMA, are not part of ICD-10-CM, and the AMA is not recommending their use. The AMA does not directly or indirectly practice medicine or dispense medical services. The AMA assumes no liability for data contained or not contained. ICD-10-CM is a registered trademark of AAPC. AAPC content found within this presentation is copyright of AAPC. Keyword concept FTR, Chun, AMCI Fab 7, AMCI ICD-10, Flip, TAP, and MCG are trademarks of AMCI. The credentials CPC, CRC, COC, CPMA, CPB, CPPM, CPCO are owned by AAPC. AMCI does not own the rights to these credentials. The credentials CCA, CCS, CCS-P, RHIA, RHIT are owned by HEMA. AMCI does not own the rights to these credentials. Whew. All right. So without further ado, we are going to go ahead, like I was just talking about, and warm up with some Jeopardy type style situations. So I'm going to quickly stop sharing my screen and then I'm going to go ahead and grab our game. So you are going to put all of your answers in the chat. You're going to put all your answers in the chat, and then all of these questions are going to be true or false, and they are all going to be taken directly from pretty much word for word from the MCG manual or your ICD-10 manual. So that is where I'm getting all of these. So definitely make sure to put your answers in the chat, and then afterwards, I'm going to, because we go kind of, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We will start off with signs and symptoms for 100. Again, just put your answers in the chat and let me know what you think. So, the first question that we are going to start off with, if there is not a definitive diagnosis, code signs and symptoms. Is this a true or a false statement? What do you think, everyone? Get those answers in the chat, and I will move on in just a few seconds. Okay, I was like, where did everyone go? And then like a million responses just happened all at once. So yes, this absolutely is going to diagnosis. You should definitely be coding the signs and symptoms. You got to code for something, right? And you don't want to assume there's a diagnosis, especially if it's saying, like possible, hypertension or, that kind of thing. You don't want to code that. Just definitely code the signs and symptoms. Great job. So let's move on to some more general guidelines. Let's move on to 200. Again, just put those answers in the chat. All right. So a sequela code can be used regardless of the time elapsed since the acute phase of a condition or injury. What are we thinking, guys? Let me know in the chat. All righty. So yes, this one is also going to be true. Code, definitely use that. Does not matter how much time has elapsed since the acute phase. So definitely keep that in mind. And again, if we're ever confused, like I said, on what guideline or where it says that, I will go through them at the end again. So no worries on that. All right, let's move on to 300. You guys are doing great. Another general guideline. All right. Do not assign multiple codes when a combination code sufficiently describes the condition. True or false? All right. This one is also going to be true. I think I'm just clicking on all the true ones. I'm not meaning to. You definitely want to simplify codes whenever you can. So if there's a combination code, there's no reason to split that up into multiple codes. So I think everyone got that one right. You guys are rocking. I totally agree. Let's keep it up. Let's move back to signs and symptoms for 200. Okay. When there is a definitive diagnosis, code all signs and symptoms, even if they are integral to the diagnosis. Is this going to be true or false? Let me know, guys. We'll go over it in a few seconds. Okay. Everyone is giving an overwhelming false, and this is going to be correct. It is false. So, yes, the guideline specifically says do not assign additional codes for signs and symptoms routinely associated with disease process. So, if there's signs and symptoms of pneumonia and they're diagnosed with pneumonia, you're just going to diagnose pneumonia, not those extra signs and symptoms. So, everyone got that one, I think, right as well. So great job. Keep up the great work. We're going to move to let's do a 300. Oh, this is a long one. Okay. If the same condition is described as both acute or subacute and chronic, the separate sub-entries exist in the alphabetical index at the same level. You're going to code both and sequence the chronic code first. So if someone has like acute and chronic bronchitis, are you going to code them both and you do your chronic first? Is that true or false? What do you think? Let me know in the chat. Okay, you guys are flying through these. Yes, this one is indeed false. So you should definitely, if it's acute and chronic, you should definitely code them both. But what makes this false is that you should code them both, but you should sequence the acute or the subacute code first. So that is what makes this one incorrect. That's what makes this one false. Again, I think everyone got this one. You're really killing these general coding guidelines. I'm loving it. All right, let's knock out this 100. All right. Report each ICD-10-CM diagnosis only once per encounter. Oh, you guys got this one. I'll give you just a few seconds for this. Put it in the chat. Let me know. All right. Yes, 100%. This is true. There's no reason why you should be coding a diagnosis more than once per encounter. So everyone got that one right. All right. And let's knock out the rest of these signs and symptoms for 300. All right. Code additional signs and symptoms that are not routinely linked to a disease process. True or false? All right. This one is true. You guys are killing this warm up. Oh my goodness. Okay. Yes. 100% true, which everyone got the other one right. So I would assume everyone would get this one right too. If it's not part of the disease process, you should be coding it. Well done. Well done. All right. And then we're going to do this 100. Always verify the proper code using the alphabetical index and main term references. True or false? All right. This one's going to be true. You definitely always want to verify your code in the alphabetical index. Definitely verify that and verify your main term references for sure. You always want to double check. All right. And then our last guideline before we move on to some in-depth scenarios. If documentation does not identify the side, use the right side as the default code. True or false? All right. So this one, I'll look at the exact one and what they're referencing. I think it might be dominance. Um, oh, this one is false. Whoop. Oh my gosh, I got that one wrong. Ah. Oh no. Well, that was our last one. So, yes, this one is false. So, if documentation does not identify the side, you're going to assign a code for unspecified side. So, if there is a code for that, which a lot of times there is, mostly all the time. So, yes, you're going to assign a code for unspecified side. Don't just assume that it's right side. It will say unspecified. Exactly, exactly. All right, perfect. I'm going to stop sharing my screen just for a second. And then, like I was talking about earlier, I'm going to go back over the questions that we just went through really quickly, just so we can see the exact guidelines that I used. But you can always, this video is going to be recorded, so you can always look back on YouTube, find this recording, and if you want to go through more in depth of these questions and answers, you can pause and take as long as you need. So, these are going to be the questions, the answers, and the guideline references for the signs and symptoms column that we went over. Again, this is going to be recorded, so if you want to look back on these, because I'm not going to go over every single one, you can do that and you can pause and investigate and use this as a study tool if you need to. So this is going to be the second column with just those general coding guidelines. Again, the question, the answer, the guideline reference. And then last but not least, this was going to be our last column. Again, question, answer, and our guideline reference. And these guideline titles are going to be from the MCG manual, but obviously you can follow them in the ICD-10-CM manual as well. All right, so after that warm up, how are we feeling? Are we ready for some in-depth scenarios? Let me know in the chat, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to grab our second interactive game kind of for the night. So what I'm going to be doing is moving to our Quizlet. So I'm going to be doing a scenario, and we are going to break down the scenario. We're going to break down the scenario into our keywords. Then we're going to break it down into a specific guideline we're going to use from our general coding guidelines. And then last but not least, we are going to be selecting our specific ICD-10-CM codes, and then we'll go over it all together so that we can really, break down a scenario into 3 separate parts so we can really get that coding mastery. Okay, so This is going to be our first scenario for the night. So, a 41-year-old woman presents to the urgent care clinic complaining of chest tightness, shortness of breath, and fatigue for the past few days. After examination and diagnostic testing, the provider documents possible viral pneumonia. So, what keywords are we going to be focusing on in this scenario? That's going to take us to those ICD-10-CM codes. Put it in the chat, and then we will go over it in just a few seconds. Let me know, coders. All right, if you're still typing in the chat, then still put those answers in. But what I am focusing on, which a lot of people put the same in the chat, I'm focusing on that chest tightness, that shortness of breath, the fatigue, and then the possible viral pneumonia is what I am focusing on. All right, so now we are going to move on to the second part of this scenario. So, same scenario, we got our keywords down, and now what ICD-10-CM guideline are we going to be using to lead us to our codes? Now, we're just obviously going to be using the guidelines from the general coding guidelines section. So, to kind of narrow it down, because I know there are a lot of guidelines. So, what guideline from that section are we going to be using? You can put the number, or you can put the title, however you want to do that. But let me know in the chat what we think. Also, yes, Miss Leslie, I'm reading your question right now. I think that might have been an error on my part. Yes, you definitely want to go in the alphabetic index, look at your main term in the alphabetical index, and then verify in the tabular list. I believe that I said verify in the alphabetic index, so I think I was wrong with that one. Yes, you would look up your main term in the index, verify in the tabular list. So if that confused anyone, I apologize. Thank you for clearing that up. All right, and then I'm getting, if you don't have a manual, that's okay. We'll still go over all of it, and I'll include a clip of what the guideline states, so you can still look at what the guideline is going to look like in the lecture. So no biggie. Don't let that. Yeah, of course. No worries at all. So yes, the guideline that we're going to be using is IB4, and the title of that is going to be Signs and Symptoms. So yes, very forensic. Amazing job. for those who put that in the chat. I know sometimes it's hard to find a specific guideline. And so now, without further ado, we are going to use those keywords. We're going to use that guideline. And now we are going to select our ICD-10-CM code or codes. So what code or codes are we going to be reporting for this specific scenario? Everyone take a look, use what we've been doing so far, and then we will go over all of it all together and see how it looks. So I'll give you guys a few seconds on that and let me know in the chat. All right. If you guys are still working on it, no worries. I'm not going to give away the answer right now. I'm just going to switch over to our PowerPoint so we can see how everything looks all together. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So there is, you can have your MCG manual to answer if someone put a question about electric manuals. So you can have your ICD-10-CM book as an ebook, and you can also do the MCG manual as like an e-manual, so you can look at it online versus having it, you know, like a paper version if you want to. We unfortunately don't have like a version we can post like a PDF of or anything, but I know that there are different ways that you can download it or purchase it if you want to do that, and you can look at it. And I believe that now you can also take when you're taking your certification exam, if you want to do an ebook, you can do that instead of flipping through a book as well, which is super cool. All right. So here is going to be our scenario. I won't read it again for the millionth time, do not worry. And then our keywords are going to be our chest tightness, our shortness of breath, our fatigue, and the possible viral pneumonia. So this is going to be a clipping from our MCG manual, and this is going to be the guideline that we referenced, the IB4, signs and symptoms. So it says right here, it says codes that describe symptoms and signs as opposed to diagnosis are acceptable for reporting purposes when a related diagnosis has not been established or confirmed by the provider. So that's a really important part in this guideline, because if you look at our keywords right here and you look at the scenario, it says possible viral pneumonia. So because it says possible viral pneumonia, that means that it has not been confirmed, and that means that it is not a definitive diagnosis. So, because of that, we are going to be coding just the signs and symptoms. We are not going to code for that pneumonia because, again, it has not been confirmed yet. So, the signs and symptoms we're going to focus on are going to be that chest tightness, that shortness of breath, and the fatigue. So, if you arrange them in a different way than I arranged them, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. That really doesn't matter because there's no kind of hierarchy of these signs and symptoms. The first one that I'm going to focus on is R07.89. That is going to be other chest pain instead of, I believe there was another code that was like chest pain NOS. The reason that I chose this code is because it says chest tightness. And that's the reason that I picked the R07.89 versus the other chest pain code. So we have our chest tightness code. We also are going to have our shortness of breath code, which is going to be R06.02. And then we are also going to code for the fatigue. And so that is going to be this R53.83, and that is going to be our fatigue not otherwise specified. And so those are the three codes we are going to be coding. And if you got that one right, a lot of people put that exact coding sequence right in the chat. So if you got that one right, absolutely outstanding. I know it's a little harder when you just see a scenario and you have to take specific codes out versus having multiple choice. But this was, yes, fantastic work. You guys killed that scenario. Amazing, amazing job. All right. So let's keep going. Since you guys are on a roll, I'm going to go back to our Quizlet and we are going to grab our next scenario and we are going to start from the top and we are going to pick out our keywords. So here is our next scenario. All right. So a 58-year-old man presents to his pulmonologist with worsening shortness of breath, productive cough, and wheezing. The provider documents that the patient has both acute and chronic bronchitis. What keywords are we reporting for this scenario? Let me know in the chat, coders, and we will go over it in a few seconds. Alrighty. And again, I totally forgot to say, but if you guys have, any questions about any of the scenarios that we go over, if you need a little bit more of an explanation, just a reminder, definitely click on that link to the survey and you can ask a question. I will be more than happy to, go over any questions you might have about the scenarios. So no worries on that. And I see a lot of people have been putting their answers in the chat. If you're still typing, that is totally fine. Some people are super crazy fast at typing on here. So yes, the shortness of breath, the productive cough, the wheezing, and then the acute and chronic bronchitis. Pretty much everyone got that one, so no surprise there, but always impressive. All right, and then now we are going to move on to our next part. We are going to go over the guideline. There actually is two guidelines we are going to be referencing from the general coding guidelines section for this scenario. So you can put one, you can put both, but let me know in the chat what you think it is, and then we will go over it. All right. So, yes, so the guidelines that we are going to be using for this specific scenario are going to be IB5, the conditions that are an integral part of the disease process, and also IB8, acute and chronic conditions. So, those are going to be the two we're going to be focusing on to solve this scenario. And then, speaking of solving scenarios, now we are going to move on just like last time, we have our keywords and we have our guideline. Well, we have both of our guidelines that we're going to be referencing. So now we are going to be choosing our code or codes for this scenario. Let me know what you think in the chat, and then we will go ahead and go over it in our PowerPoint. Alrighty. Again, if you are still putting your answers in the chat, please continue to do so. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and switch over again to our PowerPoint so that we can see everything and how it looks all together. But thank you so much for all of your participation in the chat. You guys are doing great. Okay, so, whoop. Okay, so this is our scenario, and again, the keywords that everyone was choosing to take out of this scenario are going to be that shortness of breath, that productive cough, the wheezing, and the acute and chronic bronchitis. And these are going to be the two guidelines we're going to be using. So the reason that we are choosing, obviously, the acute and chronic conditions is because there is an acute and chronic condition in our scenario. And the reason that we are choosing the conditions that are an integral part of the disease process is because the chronic and acute bronchitis, the signs and symptoms of this diagnosis are going to be the shortness of breath, the productive cough, and the wheezing. So we do not need to code for those signs and symptoms because they are going to be an integral part of the disease process. So we are just going to specifically focus on that acute and chronic bronchitis. And again, if you look at the IB8, that guideline, it specifically references how you should code them. So you see, first we are coding our acute or our subacute. So that is going to be our first code. Our first code is going to be J20.9, which is going to be that acute bronchitis, unspecified. And then our second, we look right here to our sequencing guide, and then it says to code for our chronic bronchitis. And so that is going to lead us to our second code, which is going to be J42. And I think so many people got that right. So absolutely outstanding. I was trying to be a little sneaky by putting these signs and symptoms in there, but you guys caught on to it, which is amazing to see. So yes, so hopefully the explanation made sense if you were a little iffy about it, but outstanding participation in the chat. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen again, and then I'm going to grab our last scenario for the night. Let's end on a good one. I will switch back to our Quizlet, and then we will go over our third and final scenario. And we're going to, again, just be doing what we've been doing the whole time and break it down. And we're going to start with our keywords. So, for this scenario, it is going to be a 29-year-old woman is seen for chronic facial weakness and excessive tearing caused by a facial nerve injury sustained in a motor vehicle accident 3 years ago. The provider documents facial paralysis as a residual effect of prior traumatic facial nerve damage. So, what keywords are we focusing on in this scenario? Let me know in the chat, coders. All right. So yes, if you are just a reference, someone put a question in the chat about there are two different videos, live videos on our YouTube channel. There's one that is for people on a computer, and then there's another live video option for people that are on a mobile phone, so that the font is a little bit smaller so you can see everything on your phone. So if the font seems super small and you think that it needs to zoom in, I would click over to the computer version. There's one of them has like a little phone icon, and that means the font's going to be smaller. And the next one's just a regular title. The videos are on YouTube right next to each other. So however you found this one, you can exit and just click on the one next to it, and the font should fit your computer if you're using a computer. All right, so the keywords that we are going to be focusing on, which again, everyone is really awesome at choosing these keywords. I'm picking out the chronic facial weakness caused by facial nerve injury from a previous injury. What? Yes. And facial paralysis as a residual effect of a prior traumatic facial nerve damage. So everyone kind of put the same thing, and that is what we definitely should be focusing on for sure. So great job. And now we are going to pick our guideline. We're just using one guideline for this one. So what guideline from the general coding guidelines section of our manuals are we going to be using to solve this scenario? Let me know in the chat, and then we will go over it. Alrighty, this one's a little bit of a difficult one. So the guideline that we're going to be referencing is going to be IB-10. So that is going to be our sequela or late effects is the guideline that we're going to be using to solve this scenario. So if you got that, amazing job. And then now, without further ado, again, let's end on a great note. Let's use those keywords and let's use that guideline and let's pick out our specific ICD-10-CM code or codes. And then again, I will flip it one more time back over to our PowerPoint and we'll see how everything looks all together. All right. I know I've said it a million times, but I will not give away the answer. I am simply switching back to our PowerPoint. All righty. And this one is going to be probably the most difficult scenario of the night. So hopefully this explanation is going to make sense. Okay, so we have our scenario right here. We are taking out this chronic facial weakness and the facial paralysis as a residual effect of prior traumatic facial nerve damage. So this is a large guideline. So this is going to be our guideline, the IB-10, so the sequela, the late effect. And if you look about the sequence coding right here, there's a lot to read, but you can see right here the sequencing. First, you're going to be coding the condition or the nature of the effect, so the residual effect. And so that residual effect is going to be the facial paralysis. So your first code is going to be this G51.0. And this is going to be Bell's palsy. So this is the code for facial paralysis. So that is why we're using this specific code, because this is the residual effect or the condition or nature of the sequela. So the reason they're getting treated, they're coming in because of that facial paralysis. And then we are going to focus on the sequela. So they have the facial paralysis because of a traumatic facial nerve damage from a previous injury. So if you go into your ICD-10 manual, you will find the code S04.5, injury of facial nerve, and then you have to go down because it says S04.5. So you're going to have a seventh character. So if you look over here, you're going to have a seventh character, and you're going to be coding for the sequela. So that is why you're going to have an S at the end of that. So since it is an unspecified side, it is going to be S04.50XS. The reason you're putting the X is because it's a placeholder, because there needs to be 7 characters. And the reason that we are choosing the S Sequela as the 7th character is because this is going to be a residual effect from a prior traumatic facial nerve damage. So it's not an initial encounter. And so that's why we're not doing A, and then it's not going to be a subsequent encounter. It's going to be prior traumatic facial nerve damage from a previous injury. And so that is why we are selecting that as our second code. So again, first we're doing our residual code. So she has facial nerve disorder, and so she got it from the injury, and that is why we're coding that one second. All right. I see everyone was killing it in the chat, or everyone was on, everyone was on the path. So I hope that this explanation made sense. Let me know if the explanation made sense in the chat. Because I know sequelas are, a little on the difficult side. Like I said, this one was probably on the more difficult side of all the ones that we did today. So again, if you put your answer in the chat or you are on the right track, absolutely outstanding. And that is going to be our last scenario for the night. So if you have any questions about, again, that scenario or any of the other scenarios or anything that we went through tonight, I think aha moment. We love an aha moment. So yes, thank you so much, Miss Olga. She knew what I was going to say before I even said it. If you have any questions about anything we went over, definitely make sure that you click on the survey link, or if you want to provide us some feedback on how we can, better improve these classes so we can learn as much as we possibly can learn, let us know. Definitely click on that link for sure. And then next week, I hope that everyone is here to join us. I think we're going to get into some infectious disease codes. We're going to kind of keep the same form. So thank you so much to everyone that participated tonight. Thank you so much to my team, Miss Olga, Miss Vina, always doing amazing in the chat. I hope that you guys had a great class. It was great participation, and we hope to see you guys next week for week 2. Everyone have an amazing rest of their day and rest of their week. Thank you so much.
4,000 exam passers and free classes at AMCI. Learn to code straight from home or on the road at